In manufacturing firms, effective safety training for workers is a very important thing. The first step of training is the safety orientation for new hires. Ideally, before they actually begin work, before they are put into a position where they are exposed into workplace hazard, they need to be familiar with the organization's safety culture. This study aims to identify the risks from having insufficient safety training in firms, especially into manufacturing companies. This study sought to answer the following sub-problems. First, what is the importance of safety training to workers? Second, what are the impacts of insufficiency of safety training to the performance of workers? Third, what are the effects of insufficiency of safety training in the company? And last, how will the company provide safety culture for their workers? I developed survey questionnaire to gather and analyze data wherein the target population composes of 15 selected respondents from 3 different manufacturing firms. The drafted survey questionnaire presents no demographic profile. The part 1 of the questionnaire is about the respondents' perception on the importance of safety training to workers' working conditions. The part 2 of the questionnaire is about the impact of insufficiency of safety training to the performance of the workers. In part 3, the part 3 shows the effects of insufficiency of safety training in the company. The part 4 is the respondents' perception on the proper ways on providing safety working condition to the workers. The respondents will put a check mark in the column that shows their agreeability from disagree, fairly agree, somewhat agree to highly agree. As the result of the survey, in part 1, stated the importance of safety training to employees' working condition, 80% of respondents somewhat agreed and 20% highly agreed. In part 2, 40% of the respondents somewhat agreed, another 40% agreed, and 20% fairly agreed upon the impacts of insufficiency of safety training to the workers. In part 3, stated the effects of insufficiency of safety training in the company. 20% of respondents highly agreed, 60% somewhat agreed, and another 20% fairly agreed. And in part 4, 10% of respondents highly agreed, 80% somewhat agreed, and another 10% agreed upon the proper ways to provide safety working conditions. Based on the findings generated from the gathered data, I came up with the following conclusions. First, safety training is very important, particularly to the workers in manufacturing firms. It really makes workers comfortable in their work and improves their workers' safety knowledge. It can also avoid them to ill, injuries, and death. Second, having insufficiency safety training, especially in manufacturing firms, has a big impact to their employees. It may end up doing their work tasks inefficiently. It may lead them to ill, injuries, and death, and they may not be aware to hazards. Third, insufficiency of safety training for workers also deeply affects the company. It may result in low productivity, legal disputes, and immediate expenses, and also interruption of its operation. And last, a company, especially in manufacturing industry, should provide very effective safety training to their workers. They should consistently and fairly enforce their safety rules, provide appropriate personal protective equipment, and establish a clear discipline process to ensure the safe working condition of their workers. I also came up to the following recommendation to the manufacturing firms and their workers. First, workers should strive to be knowledgeable about the company's safety standards and to recognize hazards. They should be always ready to follow company's rules provided. Second, workers should be always aware and responsive to avoid any incidents in their workplace. Third, manufacturing companies should consistently and fairly enforce their safety rules, provide appropriate personal protective equipment, and establish a clear discipline process to ensure the safety working condition of their workers. It may also serve as their motivational factor to do the delegated tasks accordingly and effectively. And last, safety orientation and effective safety training program should be properly implemented by the company.